Hello. Well, I found this in the Scottish Mail on Sunday, and we have the pictures of the Climate Rebellion priestesses here, or priests, it's difficult to tell which, and they're in blue this time. I don't know why. No doubt they have their reasons. And it says here, revealed, Extinction Rebellion plans for public suicides as Glasgow Eco Summit looms. Well, that should be interesting, shouldn't it? Extinction, oh, I have to explain. The Glasgow Summit is, now let's see, here we are. The United Nations Climate Change Conference. That's in November, I think. Oh, there we are, 9th to 20th of November 2020, under the presidency of the United Kingdom government. Well, we'll see if there'll be anybody left to attend it, won't we? But if there is somebody left to attend it, then these people are going to make sure they'll finish themselves off, rather. Extinction Rebellion leaders are considering a series of extreme protests to disrupt this year's UN Climate Change Summit in Glasgow, including a possible hunger strike that ends in death, or a demonstrator publicly committing suicide. That's going to do the world a lot of good, isn't it? Mind you, has anyone here heard of the Darwin Awards? The Darwin Awards are given out every so often to people who have died in the process of doing something utterly stupid. I remember there was one where a man bought some army surplus rockets and strapped them to the back of his car, and then thought that would get his car to jump over a canyon of some sort. Of course it didn't, and the results were quite messy. Right, well, he got a Darwin Award, I'm afraid. Poor fellow. Or rather, his poor relatives, I'm sure they missed him, because he obviously had an original mind, if not exactly one that plans too well. And these climate kamikazes are going to do a similar thing. The activists are also proposing to spray traffic lights black, close motorways and road tunnels, and carry out industrial sabotage, according to insider documents obtained by the Scottish Mail on Sunday. As if Scotland doesn't have enough problems right now. It's got serious financial shortfalls. Its health service is buckling under the strain of just ordinary use, and pretty soon the coronavirus is going to add more to it. The papers were drawn up by Extinction Rebellion's Action Strategy Group, which is responsible for planning future protests and the form they should take. They say the time has come for a temporary moratorium on our traditional mid-ground arrestable actions. They call this mid-ground. I call this total nuttiness. Such as the occupations of central London's streets, which took place twice last year. In their place should be a new wave of higher risk protests to be justified by our own vulnerability in terms of the imminent threats to our food systems and economy, the risk of fascism, famine, disease and war. See how they bring in the word fascism there? There's no fascism except for pushback against this sort of nonsense. But they define that as fascism, don't they? Among top ideas the group has discussed are a hunger strike to the death and even people possibly prepared for suicide. They add the COP-UN Climate Change Summit, due to be held in Glasgow in November, is a tool of a broken system. At that point, I tend to agree with them. That is, it's a bunch of governments and non-governmental authorities of various sorts virtue signalling. They're not actually doing anything, and what they are doing is finding ways to restrict people without actually sorting out the problems. There's a vast amount, whatever Extinction Rebellion say, there is a great deal of discord between scientists about what's causing climate change and indeed what might not cause it, what might help alleviate it. And they're blaming everything on the great Satan of CO2, of carbon, but we don't really know that for sure. As has been said, water vapour is much worse than carbon for causing a greenhouse effect. And the world's climate has been changing throughout its history. We know that. Okay, so up to 200 world leaders are expected to attend this event, and around 300 delegates and campaigners. Right, well, I have an idea for you. The fact is that these people are fanatics, and for fanatics, almost anything is admissible. And just before you think it's going to end with, stopping people driving cars, let's just look at this, which is a finding from the UCLA. Your pets are unsustainable and ruining the environment. Did you know your dog was causing serious environmental problems? Because he is, and what's going to happen is these guys in Extinction Rebellion, they're being a little disingenuous here, because they are talking about stopping people from doing stuff that's going to destroy the planet, without telling people that really what would assist in the largest chunk would be for people not to have pets. But they know that people aren't going to accept that, not to start with. So if they can get some of their rules pushed through, the next thing they will go after when people have been softened up will be pets. What I am saying is that these people who insist they love the environment so much are actually not talking about the worst environmental pollutant that we know about, and that's Fido there. Now, as a matter of fact, I just got a rescue dog, and he's old and he's ugly. I don't think I've seen quite such an ugly dog, but he's got a nice nature, and every dog deserves a reasonable home. So I'm going to look after him as long as he lasts. When it comes to global warming, Fido and Fluffy are part of the problem, a new study by UCLA indicates. This, by the way, is from 2017. And it's from Technocracy News. Most cat or dog lovers would say they can't imagine living in a world without pets, but as the threat of global warming increases, environmentally conscious pet lovers may need to make some tough choices, according to the study. What do they mean, tough choices? Starve Fido to death? No. Put Fido down. Pet ownership in the United States creates about 64 million tonnes of carbon dioxide a year. That's a terrible amount. Why aren't these so concerned governments talking about that? That's the equivalent of driving 13.6 million cars for a year. The problem lies with the meat-filled diets of kitties and pooches, according to the study by UCLA geography professor Gregory Okin. Dogs and cats are responsible for 25 to 30% of the impacts of meat production in the United States, said Oak. It's Orkin here and Okin there. Obviously, Technocracy News may be good at coming up with scientific theories, but not so good at getting names right. Compared to a plant-based diet, meat production requires more energy, land and water, and has greater environmental consequences in terms of erosion, pesticides and waste, the study found. Now, I have read an article which I can't lay my hands on right now. I've just been reminded of it by reading this, talking about almond farmers in California ruining the environment because of the need for water and intensive agricultural practices, and it's even killing bees because they're being overworked, I think. And that's not meat-based anything. So here we have two groups of people all shouting at each other that they're the ones, the vegetarians and the vegans and their almond milk, or the dog owners and their meat requirements. It's very confusing, isn't it? And can you blame people for just going, how can we tell what's what? Well, you see, that's when people like Extinction Rebellion come in, because they're the ones who are sure of themselves. And that's the problem. Only the fanatics are sure of themselves in this discussion. It really is a problem. And, well, the same thing's going on with discussions about how to deal with the coronavirus. We get the fanatics one side or the other, shut down everything or open, just, sort of go with the flow, see what happens type of situation. And nobody knows who's right, except for the fanatics who are very sure of themselves and think that dressing in blue is going to improve the world. Well, maybe it is. I rather like the colour blue myself. My own background curtain has been like that for ages. All right, well, thanks for listening. If you want to donate or contact, the information will be rolling over the Graniopteryx as I speak. Please like, subscribe and share because it does help with the algorithm. If you visit my channel on YouTube and one day discover that I've disappeared without warning, you'll still find me on BitChute or Minds. Just go to either of those platforms and do a search for Graniopteryx. If you're already watching this on BitChute or Minds, good for you. Meanwhile, if you're watching this on YouTube, remember that you must keep checking the subscribe and bell icons because occasionally they reset. Till next time.